Hello, hello, hello. Nikki here again with Pivot Seekers Online, 3Ps Training and Coaching Solutions. Thank you so much for coming back. This is our second blog recap. I'm hoping that we'll get this done every week. Every time we release a blog or two, we'll go ahead and do a recap on one or two of those blogs to make sure that all of the nuggets and the great information inside those blogs are put into video format so that you're not missing out if reading blogs is just not your thing. So, welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about how to stop wasting time, energy, and resources. It takes only one word. I'm not going to tell you what that word is just yet. If you haven't read it, you can go over to www.pivotseekers.com. Otherwise, stay tuned. Here we go. All right, and here we go. So, that magic word that we were talking about, so you can stop wasting your time, energy, and resources, is intention. Intentionality, intentions, however you want to say it. We're talking about setting intentions, being intentional with your time, being intentional with your energy, being intentional with your resources. So that's what this week's blog topic is about. Pivot seekers are intentional about their awareness, energy, resources, and time. When they are, they will be extraordinary. And yeah, you're probably thinking, yeah, I'm probably not going to do anything too extraordinary in this world. That's not true. If you're raising amazing children, if you're trying to do anything in this world to make a difference, even the smallest thing, you are extraordinary, extraordinary. All right? So pat yourself on the back and let's keep it moving. Starting with the blog post, I wanted to point out that intentionality sounds simple. But in actuality, it is not because there are so many moving pieces to actually walking out being intentional about something. Um, let's use an example here. Health. If you want to have good health, it requires being intentional. You can't just look up something online and say, I'm going to do that. How long are you going to stick to that when you do it that way? If you don't set intention, and you say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it like this. This is my plan. This is why I'm doing it. And I'm going to start it here and stop here. Or I'm not going to stop until I accomplish the goal that I've set for myself. That's setting intention. If you're not doing all of that, then you're just playing around. I mean, let's be real here. And I want to go ahead and touch bases on what we talked about in the blog. If you're a God girl like myself, then you know that our Bible says that God is our Redeemer. His wisdom and power is infinite and unlimited. And our time and resources can be redeemed when we partner with his strategy. What do I mean when I say redeem? Some of us are sitting here and we may be some of us even in our 30s, I would say 40s. We feel like sometimes one of those lies that we talked about in my other blog post, it's too late. But as long as you're breathing, it's never too late. You always have an opportunity to make a pivot, to make a change, to create some form of reinvention, transformation, to rebuild something. As long as you're breathing, you have the ability to do that. I promise you. If you're still here, there's a reason you're still here and you're still fully capable. So, look, as long as you can speak, if you can act, whatever it is that you're able to do, you're able to create some form of change, some form of revitalization in this world and in your life. So I want to encourage you of that. When we talk about redemption, we're talking about, I'll use myself for example. My life has been one full of foggy moments. Um, I lived with depression my whole adult life and some of my teens, and I had no idea what I was dealing with. I didn't have any way of coping. I didn't have any way of skills or tools or management. I didn't even have the encouragement and the guidance for medication. I did not start going to therapy until I was I want to say in my 30s. I wasn't given these tools. That's not to blame anyone. I just come from the camp. Well, get on your knees and pray, which I did a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, a lot of serving. That wasn't the answer. But what I understand now is that God is redeeming that time that I felt like was lost. Some of my circumstantial depression was based off of the fact that I felt like I had lost so much time. Now I'm in my mid 40s and I'm excited about it. But when I was turning 40, yeah, I felt like I had lost so much time. It was too late. I wasn't going to be able to succeed in any of the things that I wanted to succeed at. I have had dreams of success since my teens, y'all. When I tell you, as a teenager, I sat in my room and I wrote stories over and over and over. And in those stories, I was a businesswoman, I was a leader. This is what I saw myself as way back then, before I had any idea what any of that meant. And what I'm telling you now, in my mid 40s, that time is being redeemed, not just by God's grace, but also by my intention. So we're back to that word, intention. You have to be intentional. You can't just pray about it and read the Bible and say, I'm standing on my faith and this is what's going to happen. Human intervention has to happen in the earth, y'all. There has to be some form of intention and action that takes place. Yes, he can give you all of the strategy in the world, but if you don't have the intention to walk that strategy out, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not just going to fall from the heavens into your lap. All right. So that was my little side note there for the God girls. Moving forward, that goes for anybody. All right? If you're not going to cooperate with what's before you and you're not going to put it this way, you can set an intention when you get up in the morning. But if you don't have any ways of reminding yourself, how likely is it that you're going to remember throughout the day and when you get to the end of the day, right? For instance, when I decided I was going to start being more mindful, right? Not only did I start to meditate in the morning prior to prayer to clear my mind, but I also wanted to be aware of those negative thoughts so I could fight them off, right? Because the battlefield is really in our minds. That's where all of our victories are won and lost is based off how we think about things. So I made an intention that I wanted to be aware of my thoughts. Can I tell y'all how exhausting that was? It was exhausting and it took quite some time before I actually got to the point where it was easier for me to recognize it and tear it down. Recognize it and tear it down. Replace it, reframe it, right? So I'm telling you, you have to be intentional. If you're going to change the way you eat, you can't make a decision in the morning and not think about it for the rest of the day, because you're going to get to the night and you're going to realize you did nothing different. Okay. So get off my soapbox. I just want you all to understand how powerful you have to be about setting intentions. Dr. Cindy Trim has an amazing teaching on this about intentionality. If you follow her, I believe it's Trim International. If you go and you look her up on Google, she has a teaching on intentionality and it is fantastic. So, going back through the blog, let's go back to our recap here. Without set intentions, we wake up one day and realize how much we didn't do, even when we had the time to do it. And you don't want years to pass by before you come to that realization. I'm telling you, it sucks because then you really feel like you've wasted time. It's too late. You've wasted too much time. But I'm telling you now, it's still never too late. You just have to make a decision. Like we talked about last week, you just have to dig your heels into the ground and make a decision that you're going to be intentional about reframing or rebuilding or reinventing whatever it is that it needs to happen in your life in order for you to find that place of fulfillment and peace and prosperity, right? Because that's the three P's: peace, prosperity, and purpose. So even with divine strategy, you have to play your part in the process. You have to. There is no just sitting and waiting on it to drop in your lap. You have to play a part. Period. Being intentional about knowing yourself doesn't happen naturally. Knowing yourself doesn't happen naturally. You're not just going to wake up one day and look in the mirror and say, girl, you fine and I know you. I know exactly who you are. That's not possible if you don't take the time. You got to get to know yourself and have a relationship with yourself just like you do with your spouse or your friends or your children or a coworker, whoever. God. The Almighty God. You have to be intentional about a relationship with God. You have to be intentional about a relationship with anybody. But we tend to overlook the most important relationship, which is the person that we look in the mirror at every single morning. All right. So knowing yourself doesn't happen naturally, and you have to play your part in the process of being intentional. Do you struggle with knowing and loving yourself? Are you making yourself a priority and being intentional about a relationship with yourself? Being intentional requires a plan, a process, a strategy, and a support system to stay the path. And I say that because, just like we talked about before, if you're going to be intentional about accomplishing something, whatever that is you want to accomplish is going to require a process of change. Change is always going to come with friction, and you're always going to need to put things into place in order to initiate it. You're going to have a beginning and an end to that process, which is basically a project, which means that you are going to have to treat that as such, meaning you're going to have to initiate it. You're going to have to do your homework and see what works. You're going to have to put a plan into place. You're going to have to moderate that plan as you take the steps towards fulfillment. Do you understand what I'm saying to y'all? All of this stuff, it seems like I'm getting too deep, but I'm telling you, the problem is that we're doing all of these things. We're trying to do them on a surface level, and we're not getting to the nitty gritty of it. I said this years ago, and it always stuck with me. We're always trying to deal with only the fruit on the tree instead of dealing with the root. Okay? When you're wanting to make lasting, significant change and movement in your life, you have to start within or at the roots and work your way out. All right? I hope that makes sense to you. I really do. And hopefully, you'll stay connected with us so that you can start to create that plan and gain that strategy and that support system through us. All right. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for your time. Please go and read the blog if you have a chance so that you can get the whole gist of it at www.pivotseekers.com. See you next week.